Good morning students. Now in this lecture we will discuss one of the most important topic of this semester, that is Michelson-Morley experiment, which was performed by Michelson and Morley in 1887 to determine the change in the velocity of light when observed from moving earth. That whether the velocity of light it changes when observed from the moving earth or will it remain same. And all the experiments which were performed to detect the change in velocity of light with respect to earth got failed, and hence the existence of ether medium couldn't be established. So this Michelson-Morley experiment, this is one such experiment. So after performing this experiment, Michelson and Morley, they reached the result that there is no ether medium, or the light, it doesn't require any material medium to propagate, and its velocity, the velocity of light, it remains same with respect to moving earth. So this was the Michelson interferometer, the apparatus used by Michelson and Morley to perform the experiment. So here we have two plane mirrors, M1 and M2, and as earth is moving along x-axis with velocity v through ether, earth is moving, suppose earth is moving along positive x-axis through ether with velocity v, and this experiment, it was performed on the surface of earth. It means as earth is moving with velocity v through ether, then this experiment and this apparatus which is placed on the surface of earth, this apparatus will also move with velocity v along x-axis through ether. So that is why here I have shown that this whole apparatus, it is moving with velocity v along positive x-axis, and this is source S, source of light. Light from this source, it will fall on these two glass plates. This is glass plate G1, this is glass plate G2, and glass plate G2, it is known as compensating plate, because this compensating plate, it is introduced here only to make the optical path lengths of, or optical path lengths of these two beams of light same. To make their optical path length equal, we have introduced, or they have introduced, this compensating plate. And you can see both of these glass plates, they are parallel to one another, and these glass plates, they are inclined at an angle of 45 degree with the incident light, and 45 degree with this mirror M2. And these two mirrors, they are in perpendicular direction to one another. So in Michelson-Morley apparatus, what we have in Michelson interferometer, we have two plane mirrors M1 and M2 which are at 90 degree to one another. We have one source of light, and we have two glass plates which are parallel to one another, and they are inclined at an angle of 45 degree with the source of light and 45 degree with the mirror M2. And we have one telescope to make the observation. So here you can see that when light from source S falls on a semi-silvered glass plate, this glass plate G1, its back surface is semi-silvered, means it will 50% it will transmit the light and 50% it will reflect the light, because it is not 100% silvered, it is semi-silvered. So 50% of the light received by this glass plate, it will be transmitted and 50% will be reflected back. So the light from source S, it falls on this semi-silvered glass plate. Back surface of this glass plate is semi-silvered. So at this point 50% of the light it is reflected back and 50% is transmitted. And this glass plate G1, it is inclined at an angle of 45 degree with the incident beam. And what does this glass plate G1 do? What is the function of this G1? This glass plate G1, it divides the incident beam into two beams, beam number 1 and beam number 2, of equal intensity. And because of its semi-silvered nature, 50% of the light will be transmitted and 50% will be reflected back. So after transmitting through G1, the light which is transmitted through G1, that is beam number 1, it will pass through glass plate G2, and the thickness of glass plate G2, it is same as that of G1. And this glass plate G2, it is known as compensating plate, and it is just introduced to make the optical path lengths of the two beams 1 and 2 equal. Now after crossing G2, and this is not silvered at all, that is why it is not reflecting back any light, it is just transmitting glass plate G2. So this glass plate G2, it will transmit the whole light, and that beam of light, that is beam number 1, it will normally fall on this plane mirror M1 and it will be reflected back from the mirror. When the beam 1 of light, it will be reflected back by this mirror M1, that beam 1, it will retrace its path. It will again, on its return journey, it will again pass through, this arrow is showing it will again pass through this G2, because this is not silvered at all, so it will not reflect any light. Then beam of light 1, it will fall on this back surface of G1, and this back surface of G1, it will reflect the light towards the telescope. So upon reflection from the back surface of G1, it will enter into the telescope T. Now we'll discuss about beam number 2. Beam number 2, because of the semi-silverish surface of this G1, beam number 2 is reflected from the surface of this glass plate G1. Then it will fall normally on the surface of the plane mirror M2, and M2 will reflect that beam number 2, and then beam number 2, it will retrace its path. So this beam number 2, after getting reflected from the mirror M2, it will retrace its path and reaches the back surface of G1, where it suffers transmission. And this transmitted part, it goes into the telescope T. And this transmitted part, it will be interfered with the reflected part, means there will be interference of the transmitted part and the reflected part. And we will observe the interference pattern, dark and bright fringes through this telescope. So this I have already told you that interference pattern will be obtained, which will consist of dark and bright fringes, and it is observed in the telescope by Michelson and Morley. Now I have already told you the function of glass plate G2, but here what is the function of glass plate G2? Both G1 and G2, both the glass plates, they are identical, having same thickness, but the only difference is that G1 is semi-silvered and G2 is not silvered at all. And therefore, because the thickness is same, the nature is same, so the path of the two beams, beam number 1 and beam number 2, it will be equal in glass. And beam number 2, it passes through, beam number 2, it passes 3 times through the glass plate. Now to make the optical path length or the path covered by the beam in the glass, to make that optical path length same, we have introduced glass plate G2. Why? here you can see this beam number 2. First, from the source of light, light has moved, entered this glass plate G1. At this time, it consists of beam number 1 and beam number 2. Then this beam number 2, it has reflected back. Then upon reflection from M2, it has again entered this glass plate G1. So beam number 2, it has crossed this G1 3 times. But if we have not introduced this compensating plate here, then beam number 1, it has just crossed this glass plate only once. Then the optical path lengths covered by, traced by beam number 1 and 2 will be different if we haven't introduced this compensating plate. So that is why we have introduced this compensating plate, that both the beams, they cross the glass plates for the same number of times to make their optical path length same. So now you can see this beam number 1, it has passed through this glass plate G1, then through G2, then on the return journey it again crosses through this G2 and then to the telescope. So beam number 1, it also crosses this glass 3 times and beam number 2 also 3 times. To make their path lengths same or equal, we have introduced this compensating plate G2. Now we will derive the expression for the path difference between two beams. Now because we have made the optical path lengths of two beams equal, suppose equal to L, so there shouldn't be any path difference. So Michelson and Morley, they were not expecting any path difference between the two beams. They were expecting that they will obtain the result of the path difference equal to 0. Means they were obtaining null result, that path difference will come out to be 0. But what happened? The path difference between the two beams was non-zero. So that is why they have failed to detect the motion of Earth through ether, or you can say that to determine the velocity of Earth through ether, or to determine the velocity of change in velocity of light with respect to moving Earth. So then they said that there is no ether at all. So first we will find the time taken by beam 1 for its round trip. What is that round trip? This beam number 1, it has moved from O to M1 and then again from M1 to O. So what is the time taken by this beam number 1 from moving this point to this and then moving back to this? What is the time taken? Similarly, we will find out the time taken by this beam 2. From here to here, then from here to here. So the expression for the time taken for the round trip of beam 1 along x direction, because beam 1 is moving along x-axis. Now we have already supposed that c is the velocity, at that time c was the velocity of light with respect to ether, and v was the velocity of Earth with respect to ether. And also because apparatus is placed over the surface of Earth, so v is also the velocity of Michelson-Morley apparatus with respect to ether. Now suppose that this v1, it is the velocity of light beam 1 with respect to Earth or with respect to apparatus. And according to relative motion, this v1, it will be equal to c minus v, because Earth is moving in this direction with velocity v. Apparatus is also moving in this direction with velocity v through ether. It means this apparatus, it will feel ether wind of minus v, of velocity minus v. And the beam number 1, it also moves in this direction with velocity c with respect to ether. So what will be the velocity or the relative velocity of light beam 1 and Earth? It will be c minus v. and it is equal to v1. Then here comes mirror m1. This light beams having velocity c with respect to ether. Now with respect to earth, it is having velocity c minus v. So this c minus v, it is the velocity of this light beam with respect to earth. On reflection from this mirror m1, it will move in this direction. Now what will be the relative velocity of light beam with respect to earth? Suppose it is v2, and it will be equal to, now the direction of this ether wind and direction of c same. It means now it will be c minus of minus v, means it will be c plus v. So on the return journey, the velocity of light beam 1 with respect to earth will be c plus v, and on this journey along the positive x-axis, it will be c minus v. So what will be the total time taken? The path length is L. So when it is moving from O to M1, at that time, suppose time taken is t1, and it will be equal to distance is L upon speed is c minus v. And on the return journey, suppose time taken is t2 from M1 to O, path length is same, that is L, divided by speed is c plus v now. And what is the total time taken for the round trip from O to M1, M1 to O? It will be t1 plus t2, and suppose that is capital T. It will be the sum of these two. So here you can see time taken by the light to travel distance L from O to M1, it will be suppose t1, and time is distance over velocity or distance over speed. So it will be L upon c minus v. Upon reflection from M1, during the return journey from M1 to O, the direction of ether wind, it will be same as that of the beam of light. So the velocity will be c plus v. In Earth's frame means this is the velocity of light with respect to Earth. Then what will be the time taken by the light to travel from M1 to O? Suppose it is t2. It will be again equal to distance is same divided by speed is different. So L upon c plus v. So what will be the total time taken from O to M1, M1 to O by the beam 1? Suppose it is capital T1, and it will be the summation of these two. So now take LCM. It will be c minus v into c plus v. L is common. So here we will have c plus v plus c minus v. We have just taken LCM here. This minus v and plus v, it will be cancelled out. And what you will have, that this T1, it is equal to c plus c will be 2c. So it will be 2lc upon, use the identity a minus b into a plus b, which is equal to a square minus b square. So it will be c square minus v square. Now from the denominator, take c square common. Inside the bracket you will have 1 minus v square by c square. 1 of the c will be cancelled out. Now move this bracket. Suppose its power is 1 here. Move it to the numerator. It will become 2l by c into 1 minus v square by c square. When you will move this to the numerator, this 1 it will change to minus 1. And now we know that c is the speed of light, which is 3 into 10 raised to power 8 meter per second, and v is the velocity of earth, and velocity of earth through ether is 3 into 10 raised to power 4 meter per second. We have already calculated orbital velocity of earth in this chapter, that is 3 into 10 raised to power 4 meter per second, and velocity of light is 10 raised to power 8. It means c is greater than v, so v by c will be less than 1. And if this v by c is less than 1, then v square by c square, it will be even smaller than 1. Then we can apply binomial theorem. So using binomial theorem, we will have 2l by c, 1 plus x raised to power n, it will be 1 plus n into x. and higher parts are neglected. Why? Because v square by c square is very small than 1, then the higher parts will be even smaller, that they can be neglected. Now this minus and minus, it will be plus. So we have T1, it is equal to 2L by C, 1 plus v square by c square. And suppose this is equation hash. Now we will find out the time for the round trip taken by light beam 2, which is traveling along y-axis towards mirror M2. Now suppose that here we have placed mirror M2, and that mirror M2, it is moving with the velocity v because it is placed over the earth. Now suppose u vector is the effective velocity of beam 2 in y direction. And what is the velocity of earth? Earth is moving along positive x-axis with velocity v. Then it will suffer the ether wind of velocity minus v. Minus v means the direction of the velocity of ether wind is opposite this direction. This is the velocity of ether wind. And what is the velocity of beam 2 with respect to ether? What is the velocity of light with respect to ether? It is c. And as light is, actually the light is moving in this direction with respect to ether. So this mirror, which is actually here, when this beam, it has just reflected back from glass plate G1. But when it will reach here, at that time, this mirror M2, it has moved from this place to this place because it is moving with velocity v. So actually, this beam of light, it will reach here with velocity c. Then what will be the beam of light if it reaches at this point? So according to the triangle's law of vector addition, u is the resultant, it will be equal to c plus v. Then c will be equal to u minus v. Then take the dot product of c with c. It means dot product of u minus v with u minus v. Solve this, you will get u square plus v square minus 2 u dot v, u vector dot v vector. U dot v means u v cos theta, and the u and v, both vectors are perpendicular to each other. It means cos 90 will be 0. So u dot v, it is equal to 0 because u is perpendicular to v. So that is why this c square, it is equal to u square plus v square. So what will be the value of u square? It will be c square minus v square. And what will be the value of u? It is root c square minus v square. So we have calculated the effective velocity of beam 2 along y-axis. And suppose this is equation E. So now what will be the time taken by the beam 2 to cover the distance from O to M2, which is also L? Suppose it is T1 dash, it will be distance by speed, speed is u. So L upon u is root c square minus v square, and suppose this is equation F. Similarly, on the return journey, suppose the time taken by the beam 2 is T2 dash to cover M2O, and it will be same as that of T1 dash. It is equal to L by U. So L upon root, because it is not facing any ether wind, because it is moving perpendicular to ether wind. So ether wind will be same during the journey from O to M1 and from M1 to O. So that is why this effective velocity is same in the two cases. But in the previous case for beam 1, during the journey from O to M1, ether wind was opposing, and from the journey from M1 to O, the ether wind was supporting the beam M1. So suppose this is equation G. So what will be the total time taken for O to M2, M2 to O? It will be the summation of these two. So it will be 2L upon C square minus V square. Square root means 1 by 2. Again take this C common. And when you will take this C square outside this bracket, it will be 1 minus V square by C square. Square root. And when you will take this C square out of this square root, it will be C. And here we have 1 minus V square by C square raised to power 1 by 2. Now move this bracketed part into the numerator. It will be 1 minus V square by C square raised to power minus 1 by 2. Again, this V is smaller than C. So this V by C will be less than 1. And whenever this part, it is less than 1, we can use binomial theorem. So according to binomial theorem, here we will have 1 plus n, that is power, into x, which is minus V square by C square, plus n minus 1 x square by 2 factorial. All the other terms, higher terms, are neglected because they will have even smaller value than this. So it is equal to 2L by C 1 plus V square by 2C square. It is equal to T2. And suppose this equation is star. Now you can see the expression for capital T1 was different and the expression for capital T2 is different. It means time taken by both the beams 1 and 2 is different. So what will be the difference in time taken by two beams for their round trip? Suppose it is T is the time difference, it will be T1 minus T2. And the value of T1 is 2L by C 1 plus V square by C square minus 2L by C 1 plus V square by 2C square. 2L by C is common. Inside the bracket we will have 1 plus V square by C square minus 1 minus V square by 2C square. 1 minus 1 will be cancelled out, and take LCM of this. It will be 2C square. So it will be 2V square minus V square. Just a simple LCM is taken. So 2L by C into V square by 2C square. 2 and 2 is cancelled out. So we have time difference is equal to LV square upon C cube. Then what will be the optical path difference in the distance travelled by the light? Suppose that is delta x. It is the optical path difference between the two beams which occurred because of the time difference. It will be 0. It would have been 0 if T1 is equal to T2. Actually, Michelson and Morley, they were expecting that T1 will come out to be equal to T2, but it had not happened that way. T1, it is not equal to T2. So because of this time difference, optical path difference will arise, and because of this path difference, fringe shift will arise. And it means that there is no ether at all. So it will be C, distance, it is equal to speed into time. So C into LV square by C cube, it will be cancelled out. So it is path difference is LV square by C square. So then they have rotated this whole apparatus by 90 degree. Then what will happen? M1 will take the place of M2 and M2 will take the place of M1. Beam 1 will take the place of beam 2 and beam 2 will take the place of beam 1. It means both capital T1 and capital T2, they will interchange. So this path difference delta x, it will change to minus delta x. So what will be the path difference between the change in the path difference between the two beams when the whole apparatus was rotated through 90 degree. Change in path reference, it was the path reference in the initial case and it is the path reference when the apparatus is rotated through 90 degrees. So the path reference will be delta x plus delta x, it will be 2 delta x. Delta x where it is L v square by c square. So it will be the change in the path reference when the apparatus is rotated through 90 degree. And because of this change in path difference, actually there should not be any path difference when the apparatus was rotated through 90 degree. But it is not equal to 0. There is path difference. So this change in path difference, it will lead to the shift of the interference pattern. The interference pattern, it will shift from its place. You might have dark fringe instead of bright fringe instead of dark fringe, or fourth fringe instead of fifth fringe, sixth fringe instead of fourth fringe. So there will be shifting of the fringe pattern. The fringe pattern, the interference pattern, it will be displaced. And now we will calculate that how many number of fringes the fringe pattern has displaced. So suppose delta n is the number of fringes which shift from their place on turning the apparatus, on rotating the apparatus through 90 degree. And we know that delta x, it is equal to n lambda. Then n will be equal to delta x upon lambda, where delta x is the path reference. So here the path reference is delta on rotating the apparatus through 90 degree. So delta upon lambda, it is equal to n. Delta x, which is delta here, upon lambda, it is equal to delta n. So putting the values, optical path length L is 11 meters, lambda is 5900 angstrom, v is the orbital velocity of Earth, c is 3 into 10 raised to power 8 meter per second. So after putting all these values, fringe shift comes out to be 0.4, but it should be equal to 0. So if the velocity of Earth through ether was v and the velocity of light through ether was c, then a fringe shift of 0.37 was expected. And the interferometer they have used, it was capable of detecting a fringe shift even smaller than this. And observe